Hello, everyone, and welcome to our workshop. This is a 3-session bootcamp, the online courses in the age of AI bootcamp. This is session 2 of 3, premium course design with ChatGPT and the hybrid design canvas. So welcome, everyone. If you're excited, put the word excited into the chat. If you are fully ready to be just all in for the next 90 minutes, then let me know and we will jump straight in. It is going to be the next 90 minutes. We'll have a little bit of time for Q&A in there, but we're going to take most of that time with training. So close your cell phone, your email, your social media, your browser, your door, anything that might distract you. So welcome, everyone. Everyone is ready. Everyone is excited, which is great. I want to kick this off by telling you about a gentleman named Ian Roberts. Ian is a student of mine, and he is an artist. He specializes in teaching people drawing and drawing composition. And he came to me a few years ago with a couple thousand people on an email list that he hadn't mailed in years. And he said, I want to take this online. I want to create some online leveraged income. And so we worked with him to create his first pilot course, and he launched it, and he did phenomenally well. He generated $128,000 in revenue. So fantastic results right out of the gate. But it was not all unicorns and rainbows, because he wanted it to be a great, impactful course, and there was a lot of support and feedback built into the course. And because it was so successful, which it was, because this is all that was built into it, he spent the next several months like nonstop delivering feedback via recording these Loom videos. It got so bad, his wife started calling it. So he came back to us and he said, that was great, $128,000, really good start, but I don't know if I want to do it like this again. So we worked with him to retool his course. And the following year, he launched again. And this time he did $570,000 in revenue. So a huge success. But the best part is that it was less work for him to fulfill than it was his pilot round. And that is possible because of the design of his hybrid course. And that is fundamentally what today's session is all about. We're going to cover an awful lot of ground. I'm going to show you how to use AI to engineer transformation that your audience will pay for. I will walk you through my proprietary hybrid design canvas tool for hyper-effective and profitable courses. We'll go through the 6 dimensions of course design and how AI fits into each of them. We'll talk about prompt engineering, the art and science of getting AI to do great work for you, as well as how to integrate AI with coaching in your courses to create impact and leverage. And this is part of a 3-day bootcamp. On Monday, we started with an overview of what ChatGPT is, including a live demo of course creation with ChatGPT that a lot of people found, frankly, shocking. And then we talked more about the limitations of the technology. First, the garbage in, garbage out problem. These technologies are not trained on the best information on your topic. They're trained on all the information that is available on the internet. For GPT 3.5, it's the internet up until September of 2021. Newer versions will be more current, but the training data isn't curated. It is all of the internet, and there's a lot of garbage on the internet. That's the first issue, garbage in, garbage out. And the second issue is that we're not talking about any kind of sentience or discernment. It doesn't understand your questions or the answers that it gives you, which means that it will be wrong a decent portion of the time, but it will be confidently wrong. It will have no awareness of the fact that what it is doing is essentially the high-tech equivalent of bullshitting on a test, because it has no awareness of anything at all. So that's the second issue. Even though it's garbage in, garbage out, it won't have any awareness of whether it is right or wrong. And that points us to a right way and a wrong way to use this technology, particularly when it comes to online courses and online business. The right way is to use AI to do a lot more of what you are already capable of doing, and doing it a lot faster. But you need to treat the technology like an infinitely hardworking and only reasonably competent assistant, which means 2 things. 1, you've got to give it hyper-specific instructions in the form of quality prompt engineering, which is something we're going to talk about more today. And you always need to check their work. In other words, you would never ask the technology, just like you wouldn't ask reasonably competent assistant to do something if you can not assess the quality of what they produce, which should be simple enough, except that there is more to the story, because there is a giant wrench that gets thrown into the works by a frustrating constant of human experience, which is that, to quote Gary Vaynerchuk, marketers ruin everything. There is a portion of people who will use it the wrong way, the way of less integrity. And that creates a tragedy of the commons and leads to the spamification of information that we are already seeing. And that applies to articles and ebooks, and yes, also to many online courses. And it means that the value and price of information-only courses is going to go down pretty much to zero. And it leads to a massive erosion of trust, partially because we know that the quality of content coming from a robot isn't the same, and partially because of the intentions of someone who takes the shortcut of publishing and putting their name on that content, and partially because there is something about this that we just fundamentally don't trust. But there is a very real opportunity for people who actually care about creating something real and meaningful and impactful. And yes, getting paid well for doing it. But this opportunity can only work for people who have legitimate expertise, which means they have meaningful knowledge and discernment and insight into their fields. Those people are perfectly positioned to create the only kind of course that will see its value and pricing power hold steady and even rise, which is the hybrid course, which combines different elements to create a transformative learning journey. And today we're going to go deep into exactly what that means and how to do it. And then on Friday, we're going to talk about the marketing and sales side of things. Now, on Monday, I also extended an invitation for you to join us inside the new AI edition of our Hybrid Course University, which includes 3 full courses: Hybrid Course Launch, Hybrid Course Audience, and Hybrid Course Scale, 7 months of one-on-one coaching, a guarantee that you will generate at least $6,000 of course revenue, a bonus library of time-saving AI prompts, and a bonus of promotion to 100,000 people on our 2 Sigma newsletter. And the price for this entire package is for you to decide. It's a $500 activation fee, plus you choose the rest. The response has already been amazing. A lot of people have already jumped in. Everyone who has and who is on this call, welcome. Super, super excited for all of you. And I'll tell everyone more about this option, this training, later in the session. But right now, let's get into what we're here to talk about today, which is premium course design with ChatGPT and the hybrid design canvas. And before we get into the course design stuff, I want to spend a moment on the first word of that title, which is premium. Premium as in not cheap, as in an amount of money that would get you excited to be paid and that would require a considered commitment on the part of your students. And that does involve a choice because, as we discussed on Monday, not all courses will justify a premium. In fact, most courses are going in the opposite direction, down pretty much to zero. Those are information-only courses, and they're the sort of courses that can be created in infinite numbers by AI tools like ChatGPT. And that isn't good for anyone, but it especially doesn't work for independent course creators, simply because your total revenue is a function of 2 things. It's a function of the price that you charge times the volume of sales that you can generate. And if you're multiplying by a tiny price, it only adds up to anything meaningful if you can multiply it by a very large volume. It's the difference in business models between Boeing and Coca-Cola, right? Boeing sells a relatively small number of planes, but each plane costs a ton of money. So that's fine. They don't need a lot of volume. Coca-Cola doesn't charge much per can of Coke, and therefore they have to sell very large volume. And both business models can make a lot of money, but you get there differently. And for most independent course creators, the Coca-Cola business model isn't on the table because of some pretty simple business math that starts with the retail price you're going to charge for your course. Now, some brand new entrepreneurs have this fantasy that if they charge $100 for their course, 90 of those dollars are going to end up in their pocket. But I think most of you understand that's not how it works. Put the word fantasy into the chat that if you understand that, if you're charging $100 for something, 90% of that does not end up as profit at the bottom of your balance sheet, of your income statement. Okay, so you get it. So here's how it's actually going to work. The retail price that you're going to charge when it comes to online courses is going to split into 3 buckets, and those buckets are going to be roughly evenly split, about a third, a third, a third. So about a third of the money that you charge is going to go towards customer acquisition. That's what you can afford to spend on marketing, sales, etc. Another third will go towards fulfillment. That's what you can afford to spend to create the experience that they're paying for. So if there's a coaching component, if you send them stuff in the mail, if you've got to pay for your servers to keep your course live on the internet, etc. And then the last third is contribution profit. That's the money that goes to pay off your overhead expenses. And if there's enough volume, it becomes profit in the bank. Now, what does this mean? What can we learn from this breakdown? It means that if you aren't charging enough so that a third of it is enough to comfortably acquire a customer, you will be stuck at this perpetual cycle of catch-22 of not enough sales because I can't afford marketing, because not enough sales, because I can't afford marketing, because not enough sales, because I can't afford marketing. Drop catch-22 into the chat if you're like, yeah, I totally get it. And maybe I've even experienced this cycle. See, a lot of people are saying, yeah, catch-22. I've seen it. I've been there. I've experienced it. Now, while you guys are doing that, I want to take a moment and give you a little bit of direction on how to use the chat during this training, because we're going to use this chat a lot. I'm going to ask you to drop specific words to show that you're following along, and I'm also going to ask you to share ideas during assignments. But what I will also ask you to do is please avoid crosstalk, avoid the, can you turn the volume up or down, or can I get a replay of this or that, or any of that kind of stuff, because there are a lot of people on this call. There are like 1,000 people on this call, and it will become very distracting very fast. And when you're at home in front of your computer, it's easy to forget that everything you type in is being broadcasted to 1,000 people. So let's all be disciplined about creating the learning environment that we actually all want. If that feels fair, put the word deal into the chat. If you're like, okay, yes, got it, all good. Okay, perfect, thank you. By the way, if anyone is here with like automated AI note takers or transcribers, please take those offline. That is not something that we've consented to. So just making that clear. Okay, so we are talking about the cycle of not enough sales because you can't afford marketing, and therefore not enough sales because you can't afford marketing. And there are only two ways that you can break out of that cycle. You can charge a premium, or you can have some sort of unfair advantage that changes the math by making it possible for you to get lots of customers without being constrained by what you can afford to pay to acquire them. Now, most people don't have those unfair advantages, but I'm going to quickly talk you through what some of them are, because if you do, more power to you. But if not, you need to know that this is not the case for you. So an example of an unfair advantage would be if you have early mover advantage. If you are one of the first people onto any search or TikTok or whatever, then you have a disproportionate share of voice. You're kind of stuck at the top of the search results. You get a huge advantage. It is fantastic. So it's great, but you've got to catch the right wave. If it turns out to be Periscope or Clubhouse, it was all for nothing. And this is about being first when it comes to technologies that are platforms for distribution, right? So being first with AI doesn't do it, right? It's about distribution. And statistically speaking, most of us are not the first at anything. That's just not how it works. So that would be an example of an unfair advantage. Prime placement would be another example of an unfair advantage. So if you look at, for example, the homepage of Udemy, you can look at their courses that are advertised there and look at it. It's like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of reviews. Imagine the numbers of people who are looking at those courses. That sounds great. But the reason for that is that they are on the homepage of Udemy. That is how they're getting the exposure, right? That's why LinkedIn spent $1.5 billion to acquire lynda.com and turn it into LinkedIn Learning, because they knew that they could put all those courses in front of hundreds of millions of LinkedIn users. Right? Another example of an unfair advantage would be celebrity status in your industry. That's the Kylie Cosmetics strategy to growing a business. They went from $0 to $1 billion in 5 years with 12 employees and no marketing budget. But they did have Kylie Jenner's over 150 million followers. Right? Another great example of this are Michelle and Barack Obama's books, Becoming in a Promised Land, which collectively on their first days in print, first one day, sold 1.6 million copies. And they had a very easy strategy for doing it. If anyone wants to learn the strategy, drop the word strategy into the chat. If you want to know what their trick was, what was their secret for selling 1.6 million copies on day one. All right, you want the strategy. Here it is. There are 2 steps in this strategy. The first step is spend 8 years in the White House. And then the second step is publish a book. Very simple, but not accessible to most people. Another unfair advantage would be buying in bulk. So we all know from our regular offline lives of shopping at stores and at Costco that if you go to Costco and buy 400 rolls of toilet paper, it costs you less per roll than if you go anywhere else and buy them one at a time. Well, the same is true for advertising. Think about who's the big dollar advertiser for most online course topics. You're going to be looking at Udemy, you're going to be looking at Amazon. And whereas you or I could afford to spend hundreds or thousands or maybe tens of thousands of dollars a month on ads, they're spending hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions of dollars a month on ads. And when you're spending that kind of money, the platform says, hey, let me give you a better deal. So even if you had access to all the marketing talent that they do, which we probably don't, we still wouldn't get their prices. Right? Another example of an unfair advantage would be subsidized acquisition. That's where you don't have to be profitable on every sale because, say, you've got $100 million worth of venture capital in the bank. Or maybe you have an entire value ladder set up. I'm sure you've seen models like this, right? There's the thing at the beginning people get for $7, then the $97 thing, then the $1,000 thing, then the $10,000 thing. Put seen it into the chat if you're like, yep, I've seen it totally. I've seen those structures and those models. And that's great. They work great if you have the whole thing built out. But nobody starts with all of that built out. So these are all examples of unfair advantages that change the basic math. But most of us don't have those advantages, and hardly anybody starts out with them, which is why, for the most part, course creators need to charge a premium for your business to be profitable, sustainable, and support you in achieving your goals. And hybrid courses can do that by delivering the two things that an AI can't. One, legitimate expertise that imparts knowledge and discernment and insight. And just as importantly, real transformation. That's what people are willing and eager to pay a premium for, that they will come out the other end of your course with skills and abilities that they need in order to achieve the outcomes they want. So let's talk about how to engineer transformation and how AI fits into the picture. And since we're going to talk about using AI, we need to talk about prompt engineering. And if you've been paying attention to the world of AI and ChatGPT, then you've probably already heard this term quite a lot. And you're going to be hearing about it even more. So let's start by defining our terms. A prompt is the question or request that you pose to ChatGPT. So if you were to say, I'm an expert on fill in the blank, what are 4 topics for courses that someone like me could sell? That is a prompt. If you say, let's go with the third option, what are 6 different titles that I could give that course? That is a prompt. If you say, please outline for me a 4-week curriculum for this course, that is a prompt. And you saw other examples on the last session. We're going to do more examples later in this one and on Friday. Now, we've already talked about the garbage in, garbage out problem as it applies to the data that the GPT engine is trained on. But garbage in, garbage out also applies to your prompts. And it's even more important with AI than it is with an assistant, because a smart assistant might infer what you actually are looking for from an unclear question, or will ask clarifying questions to help them do the job. But ChatGPT won't do either of those things. It will just answer exactly the question that you asked. So if you ask a bad question, you will get a bad answer. And that is why prompt engineering is already turning into one of the most valuable skills as it relates to working with AI. And there are entire marketplaces where you can pay to buy individual prompts for specific tasks. And there's a bunch of stuff that goes into really effective prompt engineering, and we're going to cover a bunch of tactics and strategies today as well as on Friday. But I want to start with the simple step of being hyper-specific about what you want. So compare, for example, a prompt like this. Write me a sales letter about my course teaching people how to reduce stress. Compare that against something like this. I've spent 12 years studying the intersection of emotional freedom technique, EFT, and yoga, and I'm creating a course on that topic. Please write me a sales letter following the AIDA framework that speaks to mid-career professional women. Please include a dozen or so fascination bullets of specific things that students will learn throughout the program. Now, of course, there is more that goes into good prompt engineering than just specificity. And we're going to go into a lot more of that later. But for now, I want you to just practice prompt engineering specifically what you're asking for. So I'm going to give you a few minutes for this. And I want you to think about a task that you might want ChatGPT to help you with. Share in the chat what the task is and what a specific detailed prompt might be. I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that right now. All right. Great work, everyone. Thank you all for sharing in the chat. You learn in two ways. You learn by doing the work and sharing your thinking. You also learn by seeing what others have done and how they're thinking about this. So hopefully you're getting both ends of this experience. And we'll also practice, of course, a lot more over the course of the rest of the boot camp. But for now, let's talk about how to engineer transformation and how AI fits into the picture. And we'll start at 30,000 feet and just talk about how learning works in general. When it comes to creating an actual learning journey, there are 3 key steps that you always have to go through. First, you need insightful explanations for people to consume through audio or video or text or whatever that lead to opportunities to apply what they've learned through theoretical exercises or practical work, and then get feedback on what they're doing right and how they need to improve. And once you understand this model and use it to frame your thinking, it helps you make a lot of decisions around what experience and functionality makes sense for your course and what isn't necessary. So let's look more closely at these steps, starting with the consumption step, right? Where you put together content for them to consume. And when people approach this step, the natural starting point they ask themselves is, well, I'm an expert. What do I want to teach? What do I want to convey? What do I want to be included here? But this is actually a little bit backwards because you want to turn it around. It's not about what you want to teach. It's about what they want to learn. You want to begin with the end in mind. Start asking yourself, when this is all done, what will they want to remember? What will they want to feel? What would they want to be able to do? And there's a term for this. Instructional designers call this backward integrated design. And you want to do this 3 levels deep. The first is what, right? What, at the end of the day, do they want to be able to do? But we want to go deeper than that. How well do they want to be able to do it? Because different levels of skill require very different levels of training, right? Very, very different. Imagine if you asked me a question, Danny, can you teach me Hamlet, the Shakespeare play, right? I'm like, well, how well do you want to know it? If you just want to know the story at a high level, yeah, that's easy. It's the Lion King, but with people, right? There we go. Job is done. If you want to be able to recite it or analyze it or perform it, right? Very different levels of training that I'm frankly not equipped to deliver. So we need to know what they want to be able to do. We want to know how well. We also want to know under what circumstances. If you want to perform the Hamlet, I was going to say the Lion King. If you want to perform Hamlet, do you want to perform Hamlet in, a friendly, put together presentation for your family? Or do you want to be able to perform Hamlet on Broadway, right? Very different levels of skill and ability. If you're teaching people about active listening, do you want them to be able to do it in a controlled exercise environment, or do you want them to be able to do it in the middle of a heated argument about something very sensitive with a loved one? Very different levels of skill and ability to perform under pressure. And of course, you want all this to be informed by market research data, right? By what the market wants to be able to do and how well and under what circumstances. And we'll talk on Friday about how to use AI to analyze and gather that data. But for now, we can start with your instinct and knowledge of the transformation that you deliver. And when you're working to build around an outcome that people truly care about, it is helpful to understand that there are only 3 core human desires that the outcome you're promising can track back to. Just 3 core human desires. That is it. Anything that we take action down on pretty much comes down to one of these 3 things. Either it's money and security. I want to make money. I want to save money. I want to feel safe and stable and secure in my life. Or love and connection, right? I want to build relationships. I want to be appreciated. I want to be connected to others. Or health and well-being. I want to feel healthy, good, stay alive, etc. And marketers sometimes like to reduce this to the shorthand of getting paid, getting laid, and staying alive. But really, there's more to it than that. The first is about stability and security and safety. The second is about love and connection. The third is about health and well-being. And this is a good gut check to see whether the idea that you're considering is actually valuable. And you do this by following a 5 whys process. Right? You say, this is what I'm going to help people create, what I'm going to help them achieve. You ask, well, why do they want that? And you answer. And you say, well, why do they want that? And you answer, and you keep chasing it down until you get to one of these 3 core human desires. So let's look at a few examples. Let's say your course is about helping people get better at managing email, right? Why do people want that? Well, maybe because I'm always feeling stressed by how many messages are in my inbox. But why is that? Well, because I feel like I'm missing opportunities and I look like I'm not on the ball. Why do I care about that? Because I want people to respect me. Okay, it's about love and belonging and connection, right? What about this one? I want to be in better shape. Well, why? Because I want to be healthier. Well, why? Because my dad was around my age when he died of a heart attack, and I don't want to do that to my kids, right? Another example would be one that's close to home for me. I want to build and sell online courses. Well, why? Because I want to make more money. Why? So I can quit my job. Why? Because I hate being at the mercy of a boss who doesn't care about me. And of course, you can go down multiple paths that can go in different directions. We could say instead, well, I want to build and sell online courses. Why? Because I want to make more money. Why? So I can contribute to our household. Why? Because I want my spouse to see me pulling my weight. It's really important to understand that which of these core desires or plural, multiple core desires your courses tie into. It's important to know that because it will inform your marketing in a very powerful way later on. Now, in a moment, I'm going to give you some time to practice this. But first, I want to bring into this, how do you do this with AI? And this actually brings us to a really powerful technique for working with AI in general. And that technique is called prompt stacking. You might remember from the conversation on Monday that one of the innovations of ChatGPT is that it's not just that you ask the question in natural language and English and it gives you an answer. You can then continue the conversation. You can ask a question about its answer, and it understands that you've got that whole conversation as context. So you can actually use prompt stacking to go deeper and deeper, just like you would with a 5 whys exercise. Or you could just ask it to do all of those steps in one shot with a prompt like this. There are 3 core human desires: money and security, love and connection, and health and well-being. Can you explain how a course about fill in the blank might tie into those desires? Now, note a couple of things. First, I'm giving it context, and the more context, the better. And 2, I'm not treating the answer as gospel so much as I'm just I'm using it to help me see other perspectives. But I know enough about my subject matter to know whether the answers make sense or not. Now, this is an illustrative start, and that's all it is. It's a start. The prompt could be a lot better, and you're ultimately going to win if you don't just copy good prompts from me, but you also learn how to formulate your own. So I'm going to give you a few minutes now, and the exercise that I want to give you in this time is to think about and share in the chat, how might you improve this prompt to get even better results? I'm going to give you a few minutes to think and share in the chat right now. you. Excellent. Really great prompt evolution ideas in the chat. Thank you, everyone, for doing this and for sharing. Now, it's not just about what you teach. It's also about how you teach, because everyone doesn't learn the same way. Our brains all learn differently and they work differently. And that means when you're building a course, it has to be effective for all of the students who might go through it. And that's why you have to be mindful of teaching to different ways of learning, whether it is the old trope of visual versus auditory versus kinesthetic learners, which, by the way, is a dramatic oversimplification. Everyone who's like, I'm a visual learner, no, you're not. That's not how it really works. But it's still useful to know that you can deliver content to people across multiple modalities of access. For something a little more nuanced, you can look at a model like the format model. That's the number 4 MAT. This is something that was originally developed by Bernice McCarthy in 1980. It's based on research from many fields and is a synthesis of findings from fields like learning styles and right and left brain dominance. And this is especially important to kind of be appropriate and relevant to different learning styles, given how Zoom fatigued everyone has become. They're not going to work as hard to absorb your content. You've got to do more of the work to make it easy. And when you start thinking about these different styles of learning, it also opens the door for you to do some more interesting things than just videos in a membership site. I'm talking about, experiential learning. In other words, learning by actually doing something. And ideally, simulating the actual activities that you want them to learn to perform, what it will look like, what it will feel like, what it will be like. Now, I have some examples of how some course creators have hybridized parts of the learning process, parts of the material that they share for people to consume. But I was a little bit conflicted about whether to share them with you, because I always worry that people will take away the wrong message. So my point in sharing examples is that you shouldn't do necessarily these specific things, but rather that you need to find the things that are right for you. So I'll tell you what, I will share the examples, but only if you promise to take them as illustrations and inspiration, but not as prescription. If that feels fair, put the word deal into the chat, that you will take these as illustrations and inspiration, not as prescriptions. Okay, we have a deal. Fair is fair. So the first example I'll share with you is my friend and colleague, Lisa Bloom. She teaches people how to leverage the power of story to make more sales and to do it more effectively and intuitively. And she manages it all through a combination of there's group coaching, there's individual email support, there's some one-on-one work with individual students, but a big piece of it is a flipped classroom structure. So she has a pre-recorded lesson that is dropped to people and they receive it at the beginning of the week. And then people show up live for discussion and workshopping. So they can go through the material as many times as they want and come prepared for the next step. It's a very rich experience that creates tremendous results for her students. And it definitely takes some time for her, but a lot less than you would expect for the multiple 6 figures that she generates every time she enrolls a cohort. So another example would be Patty Block. Patty is a business coach and works with women-owned businesses to help them position their pricing for growth. Her first pilot with us, she made $7,000. Her second pilot, she made another 8, so 15. And that led to courses that she now sells for $2,000 to $4,000 a piece. And she has a $1,000 a month membership. Her approach is really built around group discussions and masterminding conversations, because she's found that for the women business owners that she works with, it's a really intuitive way for them to absorb the ideas that she wants to share. Now, I want you to notice in these examples, not just how interesting they are and how effective they are, but also how low tech they are. You don't need elaborate technologies to do these things. You just have to be insightful and intentional about what will actually be helpful to your students. So that's the first step in our learning journey, the consumption of the information that you're sharing. And that's really important, but it isn't enough, because consuming information means that you know about something. And if knowing about something was all it took, then we'd all be rich and great shape and have nothing but amazing relationships. But as anyone who's ever bought a Thigh Master or a personal finance book knows, we would all be rich, famous, successful if we had, the ability to turn everything into action. But in practice, there's a big gap between knowing and doing. And that is because there are actually 2 very different kinds of knowledge. There is declarative knowledge, which is knowing about something, being able to explain or recite something. And then there is procedural knowledge, knowing how to actually do something. And to convert declarative knowledge into procedural knowledge, we need to go to step 2 in our framework, which is application. And this basically builds on the not at all new idea that, as Benjamin Franklin put it, tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn. And this is borne out by all of our experiences. We learn by doing, not by reading or listening. So after we consume information, the next step is application. And that application can be theoretical, doing exercises and worksheets, or practical, doing real things in our businesses and lives. And this is an area where course creators will often struggle, and AI can help a lot. Because here's the thing, creating opportunities for application that are controlled and focus on just what you want them to learn and aren't too difficult or overwhelming, there's a real art to constructing those exercises. And this is one of those areas where you might choose to spend a few hundred or a few $1,000s on an instructional designer who can come up with exercises and assignments to go with your program. Or you can get a lot of good ideas going with some good AI prompts. And we have a library of those prompts inside the Hybrid Course University. But rather than just give you one sample, I'm going to give you some time to brainstorm and share in the chat. What prompts might help you come up with good ideas for exercises and assignments and other application opportunities? I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that right now. right, great job, everyone. So we've been talking about how people take what you're teaching them and actually apply it. So let's look at some examples of different ways that hybrid course creators have done that. So this is Diane Southard. She's a microbiologist and author who teaches people how to make sense of their DNA testing. She came to us to get her course off the ground. We helped her grow from zero to $250,000 in revenue in her first year. And a big part of her course is an interactive workbook that she gives her students, and that empowers them to apply what she's teaching. Another example I'll share is Linda Claire Puig, my colleague and friend. She has a program called Your Audience, Your Way. It teaches people how to grow their audience. And implementation is challenging with a lot of programs. So she holds do-it days, which is kind of like shared work sessions where everyone hops on Zoom, she greets them, she welcomes them. Then everyone turns off their camera and just sits and works for a few hours, holding space for each other. And that's a really easy, low-tech way of creating a space that makes it easier for people to apply and really build momentum as they do. And that's really important because we still aren't done. It isn't enough for them to just apply. There also needs to be an opportunity for people to get the feedback on what they're doing right and how they need to improve. Now, again, the idea of integrating feedback into the learning journey isn't new. A major proponent of this idea was Dr. Benjamin Bloom. He was one of the most influential educational theorists of the last 100 years. And one of the concepts that he gave us is the idea of mastery learning. And the best way to explain what this is comes from Sal Khan. And he gives the analogy of a building inspector who checks everything at each stage of the building of a new house. So you build the foundations, you get an inspection. Then you build the first floor, you get an inspection. You put in the electrical system, you get an inspection. You put in the plumbing, you get an inspection, so forth. So let's say you build the foundations, the inspection gets done, and the inspection says you did 70% of the work right on the foundations. What do? Do you just continue and move on to the first floor, or do you fix things in the foundation? Put fix it into the chat if you think, no, I would fix the foundations before I build the first floor on top of it. I'm going to take a sip of my drink. People are saying, yes, of course, I would fix it. Well, that's exactly what mastery learning is, right? It basically says that you don't move on to lesson 2 until you have understood and mastered lesson 1. That's it. It's very simple. And Bloom's research shows that the mastery learning, especially when you pair it with individualized support, creates tremendous results for students. In 1984, he conducted a seminal experiment. He had 3 classrooms of kids. So classroom 1 was following just the regular lecture model of learning. Classroom 2, this is our first variation, was following a mastery approach to learning. So same curriculum, but they don't move on to lesson 2 until they've mastered lesson 1. And then classroom 3 was following a mastery approach to learning, and students who needed it got individual tutoring. So what were the results? Well, the mastery learning class, that's variation 1, they performed 1 full standard deviation above the control. And variation 2, right, individual tutoring plus mastery learning, performed 2 standard deviations above the control. Now, for those of you who it's been a while since you've taken a stats class, let me translate that to English. What 2 standard deviations above the control means is that the average tutored student was above 98% of the students in the control class. So we know how to get every kid in the class to perform at the 98th percentile. The question is not how do we do it, it's how do we make it happen logistically? Because we don't have enough money and we don't have enough teachers. And so since the 80s, there has been something called the 2 Sigma problem, which is about how to create that impactful transformation at scale. And that's why we call our newsletter that goes out to over 100,000 course creator entrepreneurs several times a week, the 2 Sigma newsletter. It's a little nod of respect to Dr. Bloom and his work. Now, fundamentally, this problem is about how do we give every student the feedback that they need? Well, the good news is that there is always going to be feedback no matter what you do. It just might not be as helpful as it otherwise could be. I like to joke that if I decide to just pick up a skateboard and start learning all by myself, I'll get feedback. It'll just be from concrete and gravity, and it won't be very nuanced. But remember that what people want to pay you for is a shortcut to achieving whatever outcome they care about in less time, at less cost, and with less risk of failure. So if you can help me learn to skateboard faster and with less painful falls, that is something I would be willing to pay for. And that's where hybrid courses really shine, in the integration of that feedback structure. And that can be done through coaching, right? This isn't necessarily about having an actual coach there all the time, although that can be useful, so much as it is about the function of being able to identify and step in when your students get stuck, to get them unstuck in whatever way needs to happen. And that can certainly be done with an actual coach. And again, there are advantages to doing it that way, but there are other options too, like peer structures. There's a lot of power in peer structures where your students support each other, whether it is peer support, so every student is at the same level and either learning together or even coaching each other given certain structures and parameters. Or it could be peer mentorship, where senior students support more junior ones, which again can be part of the learning. This is the dojo model in martial arts. And it can also be a good interim pathway to hiring someone for your team. Now let's look at some examples of how hybrid course creators have built this step into their courses. So this is Jill Cruz, one of our students. She's a board certified nutritionist who helps women over 40 lose weight enjoyably and sustainably. Her course runs for 6 months and costs many thousands of dollars. And her students get weekly micro coaching and feedback from a coach on her team, who is also a board certified nutritionist. And the structure of regular feedback that she's built is through short audio and video messages. It is hyper effective and also very efficient, which means it only takes a few hours each month of the coach's time and hardly any of Jill's time. But it's also very effective for the student. Another great example of this is Ian Roberts, who I told you about earlier, who went from his first pilot making $128,000 and working himself half to death in order to deliver the feedback, to going to $570,000 with his next launch with a lot less work. Well, the way he did it was integrating a buddy system so that students could provide feedback to each other. And that's how he was able to massively grow his revenues while working much less per student. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of decisions to be made about the design of your course. What exactly will you teach and how will you teach it? What assignments will you include? How will you hold your students accountable? What sort of support will you provide? It is a lot to keep track of, and that is why I designed a tool that I call the Hybrid Design Canvas. And I rarely share this publicly, but I want to share it with you now, with the understanding that it is just going to be a pretty quick review, because we could literally spend hours just on this. So if that's cool, put the word cool into the chat. If you're like, yep, totally get it, that's fair. It's going to be a high level review, but I'm still excited to see it. People are saying, yes, it's cool. Okay. So here's what we do. We're going to look at our course across 6 dimensions. There's the teaching, the support, the accountability, the coaching, the community, and the implementation. Then we think about, well, how are we going to do each of those? We've got kind of 4 options. It can be broadcast. It can be intermediated by technology. It can be in groups, or it can be personalized. Then we think about, well, what makes sense? And we draw some dots. So we might say the teaching will be broadcast with pre-recorded lessons and with groups where people will do workshopping labs. The support can be done in groups through tech setup calls and office hours and that kind of stuff, and also personalized through one-on-one support when they need help. Accountability will be, kind of broadcast with reminders and contests, but, accountability is something that happens personally. Coaching will be done through some peer-based interactions, or I'm going to have them do it in groups or one-on-one coaching. Community will be kind of between groups, but intermediated by technology. And the implementation will be done in groups by getting people together to just do the work. And these are, of course, different options. You can map out whatever fits for your course. Now, there are ranges that good answers for hybrid courses will usually fall into, and these are the ranges, right? And whatever decisions you make, you can see here where you're over-indexing and where you're under-indexing based on what you think people will need. So I want to explain that concept. You need to make sure that on every dimension, what you're doing is good enough that people get what they need. But then you want to look at what is the one or maybe two dimensions where I'm going to go kind of all in because that's how I'm going to stand out and win. Right now, this is the part where, everyone's kind of like processing and trying to get their head around it. And there are a lot of questions you could have. It's the sort of thing that we could spend a huge amount of time learning how to do. And we do spend actually a huge amount of time on this inside of our paid programs to find the configuration where you give your students the most results and most powerful transformation in a way that is really leveraged and profitable for you. But for right now, I'm going to give you a much simpler exercise. I want you to look at these 6 different categories of teaching, support, accountability, coaching, community, and implementation, and just choose the one that you think will be your biggest opportunity to set your course apart from the competition and create a real transformation for your students. I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that now and share in the chat. All right, awesome. Now, this is really another place where I can help you stand out, because once you have a sense of where the opportunity is for you to set yourself apart, you can ask AI for ideas about how you can make it better. For example, what are 7 ways for me to create accountability for students in my course? But, replace accountability with whatever part we're talking about. Okay, so we've covered the 3 steps in the learning journey. You start with insightful explanations for people to consume through audio or video or text or whatever that lead to opportunities to apply what they've learned through theoretical exercises or practical work. And then they get feedback on what they're doing right and how they need to improve. And we also talked about some of the ways that you can leverage high quality prompt engineering to get ChatGPT to save you a bunch of time. But obviously, we've just begun to scratch the surface. And it's important not to get so lost in the shiny objects of the new technology that it distracts us from what we're actually looking to achieve. We talked about how people fundamentally want your course for the shortcut that it provides to get them to where they want to go in less time, at less cost, and with less risk of failure. And the same is true for all of you. You don't care to be masters of AI just for the sake of it, but you do care about leveraging whatever tools you need to in order to create the outcomes that actually matter. And for the people that I work with, those outcomes are about leverage and freedom and impact. And the AI tools that we've learned about and the hybrid courses that they can help us build, they're all just in service of those goals. If these goals are important enough to us, we keep pushing through even when it's hard. And if they aren't that important, then when things get uncomfortable, we step back inside our comfort zones. That's not where the magic happens, but for some people, that's okay. Which brings us back to the off-ramps that I promised you on Monday. This is the next one. At this point, you're either really excited about what hybrid courses powered by AI development tools can do for your students and your business, or you aren't. If you are, put the word excited into the chat. If you're like, yeah, I'm super, super excited about what I can do with hybrid courses and how I can do it with AI. See, a lot of people are very excited, which is awesome. Anyone who is not excited, I suggest you sign off, and you don't need to join us back for the next session on Friday. But if you are excited, then there are 3 things that I will invite you to do. First, make sure your calendar is marked for our Friday session at 11 a.m. Pacific, which is 2 p.m. Eastern, about the playbook for marketing and selling courses in the age of AI. And remember, you've got to be there, right? We're not releasing recordings. And you don't want to miss it because there is a lot of great stuff that we are going to cover. We're going to talk about what are realistic financial goals with courses in 2023. This might surprise you. We'll talk about what market research must look like in the age of AI. There are big changes here. We'll talk about why AI makes selling courses harder and my strategy for beating the odds. We'll talk about how AI can help you seed the market with desire so sales are easy when you launch. And we'll talk about my top 4 go-to course selling strategies and how to execute them quickly with AI and a whole lot more. And I'm also going to tell you about a student of mine named Happy Leopold, who teaches Canadian immigrants about finances. I'll share with you the exact marketing strategy that Happy used to go from 0 to 6 figures in his first year, double his business in his second year, and earn over $100,000 in the first 2 months of year 3, closing year 3 over 7 figures. We're going to do that right at the top of the hour, so make sure you don't join us late. At Miracy, I think you're already seeing things start on time, and you don't want to miss out. So that's the first thing. Mark your calendar for our Friday session. The second thing that you should do is get the slides of this session. I know that many of you are like, I missed a section. Can I get the slides? Yes, you can. The way to do it is by submitting your homework. Here's your question. You need to answer the question, what prompt might you give ChatGPT to help you design or develop your course? Come up with a good prompt, send it to support@miracy.com with the subject line AI courses day 2 homework. So that's the second thing. And of course, the third thing is for you to join us inside the AI edition of our hybrid course university. This is a program that we are rolling out to help people capitalize on this new world of opportunity with hybrid courses. And it is the most robust curriculum we've ever run. It consists of 3 full-length courses. Hybrid course launch that takes you from 0 to launching and profiting from your first course. Hybrid course audience, which is about growing the audience, the following that will want to buy your courses. And hybrid course scale, about kicking everything up to the next level. Altogether, they are a step-by-step path that will take you from wherever you are to a thriving hybrid course business in just 7 months. And people are very excited about this program. But what they're even more excited about is the fact that instead of charging the retail price of what it costs, which is $2,000 for hybrid course launch and $2,000 for hybrid course audience and $2,000 for hybrid course scale. Plus there's the AI library, which I don't even know what price tag to put on it because you can't get it anywhere else. Instead of charging that $6,000 value, we're doing something completely different. We're offering the entire hybrid course university on a pay what you can basis. So you just put down a $500 activation fee now so that I know that you're actually committed. And then you will make the decision about what you can pay for this program after you've already begun to experience it. Now, the response since I announced this on Monday has been phenomenal. And I know that, especially if you're hearing about this for the first time, you probably have a lot of questions. How does that work? What's the catch? Aren't you afraid that people will take advantage of you or won't pay? And my team had the same questions when I first had the idea to try this. So let me tell you what I told them. Starting with, there is no catch. I want to be very clear about that. There is no minimum amount for you to choose other than, you pay down the $500 activation fee, and then you get started with full access to the program, the lessons, the exercises, the coaching, and all the rest. Then after 2 weeks in the program, you'll be asked what you can choose to pay, divided into 6 monthly installments. And I guess there is a minimum in that it has to be at least $10 per month, because any less than that starts throwing up fraud warnings with the credit card companies. But you'll make the decision about what you can pay, and that will be it. Nothing further will be owed, and regardless of what you choose, you'll still get full access to the entire program. We're doing it this way because there are two things that I believe to be true. First, that sometimes we need something desperately in some cases that we're just not in a position to be able to afford. I've certainly had that experience, and I probably wouldn't be where I am now if not for the generosity and grace of people who really didn't have to extend a helping hand in the way that they did. And I don't think I'm unique in that regard. It's actually very common in the entrepreneurial world. At different points in our careers, many of us find ourselves stuck in these catch-22 cycles of needing help in order to grow, but not being able to afford that help until after we grow. Well, I want to break that cycle and make it as accessible as I can for everyone who has a gift to teach that gift to others, both for their own benefit and for the benefit of everyone that they serve. We need this, and the world needs this. That's the first thing that I believe to be true. The second thing that I believe to be true, truly, is that the vast majority of people are honest and decent and are driven to do the right thing. So while I fully expect that some people will pay the least that is possible because that's all they can afford, and I'm 100% okay with that, I also trust that people who can pay more will pay more, commensurate with their means and the value of what we offer. And that's why I'm not hedging my bets with this offer even a little bit. Some people advised me that I should only do pay what you can for the training content, but take out other parts like the coaching. But I'm not going to do any of that. Regardless of what you decide that you can pay, you will get the entire hybrid course university AI experience. Now, I want to tell you a bit more about what the program actually covers. As I mentioned, there are 3 full courses that you go through. The first is hybrid course launch, where you will choose the right market, then select an irresistible course topic, find your ideal premium students, make it easy for them to say yes, design a powerful course experience, set up all your course technology, and fill your pilot with paying students. Then you move on to hybrid course audience, where you will set up lead magnets and pages to attract your target student. You will develop a steady, consistent plan for content that plays to your strengths. You'll build authority and trust through automated nurture. You will connect with high-profile JV partners and implement systems to get it all done consistently and efficiently. And then you'll move on to hybrid course scale. You'll record professional grade videos. You'll free your time with high leverage hybrid support structures. You will expand into the best for you marketing channels like paid ads and podcast guesting and more. And you'll create evergreen systems for consistent, sustainable growth. So you get all 3 of these courses. It is full-scale, top-flight training. You'll progress with the community or go at your own pace, and you get one-on-one support from your personal course building and marketing coach. So now let's talk a little bit more about the support that you'll get through the program, because there's a lot of it. First, we'll talk about group support. You get weekly training calls, weekly office hours, and a community Slack where you interact with your peers. And you also get one-on-one coaching from your coach. Through email and Slack, you can ask your questions and get answers, through the review of every homework assignment you submit, and through milestone calls at key points through the program. Now, there is another dimension to the training, which is that I will show you how to use AI the right way, to come up with topics and angles for your course, to gather and synthesize public market insights, to analyze market research data that you assembled, to draft marketing assets like sales pages and videos and emails, to enhance your offer, with time-saving AI shortcuts, to iterate learning materials to improve student experience, to draft and develop assignments and worksheets, and to extract and deploy customer feedback and testimonials. And the point is to really make this easy for you. And to help you do that, the program includes a library of ChatGPT prompts to help you with every area of building your hybrid course business, from niche selection to market research to outreach messaging to program outlining to lesson planning to drafting content to planning homework to templating support to sales copy planning. There are over 300 prompts in this library. And thanks to the integration of AI, it has literally never been easier to follow the steps that we teach and finally build the hybrid course business that will create the leverage, freedom, and impact that you want. And the whole program is designed to do that, to help you create real financial leverage in your business, so you can spend less of your time earning more money in a way that actually leads to creating freedom in your business and life. And with that freedom and leverage, the ability to create lots of impact in your immediate circle of the world and maybe in the world as a whole. And when I say that we do this, it's not just empty talk. We actually guarantee results in this program. If you stick with the program, you do the work, and you reach out to your coach when you need help, then I guarantee that you will earn at least $6,000 from your hybrid online courses by the time the program is done. And if you don't, I will refund your $500 activation fee and whatever amount you decided that you can pay. Let me say that again. If you don't make $6,000 by the end of the program, I will refund your $500 activation fee and whatever amount you decided that you can pay. And if you're doing some quick math in your head and you're thinking, Danny, that means that I could pay as little as $560. You'll still guarantee I'll earn $6,000. Can that be right? And the answer is yes, that's exactly right. This is by far the best offer that I've ever presented, or frankly, that I've even seen. And I'm very excited about it. But I'm also very aware that this is absolutely a giant experiment. We've done this once before and it went well, but I know there's still a lot that might not work out. So I know that I'm taking a risk here. My sincere belief and hope is that everyone will rise to the occasion and we will be able to offer a program in this way again in the future. But the truth is there's a very real possibility that we won't. Now, there's one more thing for me to tell you about. The doors officially open on Monday, right? Monday, May, I think it's 22nd, and they'll only be open for a few days. But since you're here with me this week, you can jump the line and get in early and also get a special early bird bonus. And that early bird bonus is all about attracting paying students to your online course. Because even though we teach you exactly how to do it, that is still the part that tends to give people that we work with the most concern. So we're going to do something very special. Now, you should know that at the beginning of the last 2 years, what my company did is we acquired a bunch of other businesses in the industry. So the Coach's Console and Connect 365 and Rizuku and Emphatic, these are all Miracy companies. And we teamed up together to create a bunch of collaborative projects like our 2 Sigma newsletter that goes out to coaches and consultants and expertise-based entrepreneurs on a weekly basis, several times a week. Well, here is the early bird bonus. When you are ready to launch, we will tell all 100,000 of our subscribers about your course. So that's instant exposure. So just to recap, inside the Hybrid Course University AI edition, you get 3 full courses: Hybrid Course Launch, Hybrid Course Audience, and Hybrid Course Scale. You get 7 months of one-on-one coaching. You get a guaranteed minimum $6,000 of course revenue. You get the bonus library of time-saving AI prompts. You also get the bonus promotion to over 100,000 of our subscribers. And the price for that is, well, it's for you to decide. You decide what you can pay. So please take advantage, jump in, tell your friends, seize this opportunity to get $6,000 of guaranteed results for just $500 plus whatever amount you decide that you can pay, and use it as a catalyst to set your hybrid course business on an entirely new trajectory. The link to jump in and reserve your spot is mrse.co/HCU, and my team will drop that link into the chat as well. So if you're excited, if you want to join us, put the word join into the chat. If you're like, this sounds awesome, maybe I've already joined, I'm planning to join, I'm thinking about joining, put join into the chat if you are excited about this. Sorry, I'm going to take another sip of my drink. Seeing excitement, I'm seeing enthusiasm. It makes me very happy. Amazing. Now, I'm sure you all have questions, and I would love to answer them. We have till the bottom of the hour. But before we do that, I want to quickly remind you of two things. First of all, mark your calendar for our Friday session, 11 a.m. Pacific, which is 2 p.m. Eastern. Again, we are not releasing recordings. You've got to be there. And second, get the slides. Submit your homework question, or rather answer to the homework question. What prompt might you give ChatGPT to help you design and develop your course? Send it to support@mirasee.com with the subject line AI Courses Day 2 Homework. Okay, with that, if you have questions, I would love to try to answer them. Drop them into the chat. Cassandra, what do people want to know?
Okay, wow, lots of questions. First of all, lots of thanks for the incredible offer. Some people really just want to clarify about pay what you can. So how does that work? Like $500 activation fee, and then they can really choose whatever amount they want?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So you put down the $500 activation fee, and that's what gets you into the program. And you start doing the program. And then a couple of weeks into the program, you're going to have a little thing that comes up and says, it's time to decide what you can pay. And so you're going to choose what you can pay, divide it into 6 monthly installments. You'll put in that number and it will say, are you sure? Because this is for real. And then you will say yes. And then you will be billed whatever amount you said for 6 monthly payments. And that's it. And nothing further will be owed. And we guarantee results in terms of the $6,000 that you will generate with the course, as long as you put in the time, do the work, let us help you. And if you don't get those results, we will refund the $500 activation fee and whatever amount you decided that you can pay.
Some people asked if you use ChatGPT to support you in creating today's presentation.
So I'll tell you what, there's the factual answer and there's the more relevant answer. The relevant answer is that if I used it well, you would never know. And that's kind of the point in course creation, right? Use it to do the things that you can do by yourself, but save you a bunch of time, right? That's the key thing. If I'd used it badly, it would be obvious to everyone. And that's what you want to make sure you don't do.
People say that, clearly some people have already clicked on the link and said it says to apply. So is there a process to be accepted?
It doesn't say to apply. It says to sign up.
Sorry, that's my mistake.
Oh,
so you can just, yeah.
People can just go ahead, click the link, sign up, and we would love to have them inside the program.
Okay. We have a few pre-submitted questions. So first of all, do I necessarily need to be an expert in a particular field to generate a course? Like, how crucial is it, to be an actual factual expert?
Completely crucial. If you're not an expert on anything, then you have no business creating courses about anything. You've got to be an expert in your field to teach about it. I want to answer a couple of questions that I'm seeing right now in the chat. Someone is asking, can I divide the 500 plus the amount I'm choosing across 6 payments? Nope, you've got to do $500 in order to get set up. And likewise, there's no payment plan for the activation fee. It's $500 lump sum. If you can't do that, this program is not for you. Cassandra, what else do people want to know?
Yeah. So once I generate a product, is there ongoing support, marketing advice, etc.?
Sorry, say that again.
So once people create their course on this, like how long do they have support available? Like email support
for the 7 months of the program. So you retain lifetime access to the course content, and we will support you for the 7 months of the program.
Mm-hmm. One person asked about, you talked about mindset. So how big of a mindset component is there going to be in the program? And can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a very significant part of the program. This is something that you're going to want to experience and also model in your own courses. It's your job to put on the table whatever people need to be successful. And mindset is a big piece of learning things and overcoming new challenges. And so it's a thoroughly integrated piece of what we teach and what we deliver to you over the course of the entire program.
And then we have a question from Bill who asked, this is going back to the hybrid design canvas. Like, what is the difference between broadcast and tech?
So broadcast is something that you just send out once and it just goes out to everyone. Technology is about doing something in a way that is more elegant and intermediated by technology, right? You can do a lot of things you can do personally for people or in groups or one-on-one. You can create that function through technology automation.
Okay. People ask if they have any questions that we're not covering here today, whether they can email, and it's again the same email as for the homework, which is support@miracy.com. I'm just putting that in the chat.
Or people can reply to any email that they've received from us.
Absolutely. When does it start?
The program starts at the end of the month on, I believe, May 30th.
And which days of the week is the course on, please?
So we have calls on different days of the week, and the lesson content is pre-recorded for you. So you can join the group calls as is convenient for you or watch recordings, but all the key lesson content is available for you as a recording. And all your interactions with your coach are direct one-on-one to that coach. So there are no schedule implications.
And do you guide people in the creation of their course, or do they need to have like their topic fully fledged already?
So you have to be an expert in your subject area, right? We can't be the experts for you, but we absolutely help you in the design, development, delivery, deployment of your course.
Okay. And about how much time per week do we need to invest in order to really do a good job with this?
It's a great question. It's a hard one for me to answer precisely because different people are different, right? Different contexts, different work styles. But generally, the guidance we give people is that 5 to 15 hours a week is what you will need to do the work in your business that the course prescribes.
Okay. There's some questions about time zones, like are we able to cater to different time zones?
Yep, absolutely. We have students all over the world in every time zone that there is.
Okay. Any other technology or things that are needed, like, ChatGPT subscription or anything else, any additional costs that they might occur?
Well, a ChatGPT subscription is free. You're going to need the basic technologies that you need to run an online business, like an email marketing software and maybe a course platform, et cetera. You don't need anything special to do this that you wouldn't need for the rest of your online business. We can recommend tools, but we're technology agnostic. You can use whatever you want. And your total technology cost would top out about, $100 a month, and you don't need all those technologies right away.
The question about the one-on-one coaching, like what does it look like? Is it like, Zoom? How many minutes? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so you interact with your one-on-one coach in a bunch of ways. You can send them questions by email, they'll answer them. You can send them messages on Slack and they'll answer them. When you submit your homework assignments in the course, they review them and give you feedback. And you get one-on-one calls with them at key milestones within the program.
And any ideas like when is it possible to start making money in general from the program? I mean, Sheldon understands everyone is different, but if they're following along and they're doing as we ask?
Yeah, sure. So, it is, as you said, it's variable. Everybody's different, and you can go faster as well. I think the fastest we've seen is someone launching and making money in 3 weeks. That's unusual. That's an outlier. If you're keeping pace with the program, you're doing the work, you're on track, what is typical is to launch your course in 60 to 90 days of starting.
Is there any merit in getting GPT-4 versus the free version?
It's a personal choice. You'll have access to, GPT-4, which is a better language model, so the answers may be better. Your access will be more reliable potentially, but that's a personal choice.
Okay. Right. Are the weekly calls going to be recorded?
Yes, all the calls are recorded and you can review them on your own time and on your own schedule.
Okay. And what is your description of an expert? Because you said that's crucial for people to join. I know you said
it's a good question. So Expert doesn't necessarily refer to credentials, although of course credentials can be helpful, but you don't need any particular credential. What you do need is the experience, expertise, track record. You need to be able to legitimately help people in your subject area, right? So it's not enough to think that it would be nice to be able to help someone in the subject area. You've got to actually know enough to be able to help people. That's what it means to be an expert.
There are some questions about copyright, which I know we don't answer.
Well, the short answer for everyone is I'm not a lawyer and I can't give you legal advice. So
I thought we might just want to say that. Yep. Okay. No recordings. Some questions whether is it possible for people, if someone said they have a physical business like a salon and want to integrate classes with services, will this be able to help me with creating this dual process?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow our process to create, hybrid courses run the gamut of structure, delivery. Most of the courses that people come to us to teach are not in person, but they certainly can be. I'll speak to one that I see as well. Diana's asking, who owns the content? Do we own it? Does Mirci own it? This is all your content. We're just guiding you in creating it, but you own all of your IP.
And how long is this offer available?
The early bird offer that I'm presenting now is available until Sunday night, because we open the doors officially on Monday. And at that point, the bonus promotion to our 100,000 subscribers goes off the table. And at that point, the doors are going to be open for a few days.
Mm-hmm. And I see a question from Philippe who has said, who's asking, talks about tech gear and budget to shoot videos, but it's like, we're teaching something that's really accessible to all budgets. It can be, setup can be super professional, or also if you're a beginner, it can be much more basic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I know we're coming up to the top of the hour, so I'm just going to put the list for the homework in chat again. We'll get the homework.
I'll answer the last question that I saw from Silvana, who's asking about Facebook advertising. So there are a lot of ways to advertise your course. We teach you a range of options. I generally don't recommend Facebook advertising for your first run of your course. That's something you do when you're looking to scale. But it's not where you're going to want to start. So we are coming down to the bottom of the hour. I know that many of you are planning on joining if you haven't already. The link to do that is mrse.co/HCU. I also know that many of you have questions, either because we didn't get to them because there are just, a ton of people on this call, or because we missed it, or because, it'll just come to you in 5 minutes or 5 hours. So reply to any email that we've received.